Thank you very much and good evening, everyone. First of all, thanks for all the people that made possible the Citizens Takeover. It's a massive event with over 30 panels in one day in 4 different rooms. So thanks for all the people that are working behind the scene to make this running as smooth as possible. My name is Virginia Fiume and I am the coordinator of Humans, one of the organizations that it's behind the StopGlobalWarming.eu European Citizen Initiative, which is what triggered this panel. In this conference today, we are talking about how citizens can shape and contribute to the future of Europe, starting from a self-convocation of citizens toward the citizen assemblies. But what should be in the future of Europe and which type of policies, this is also something that is important to start and discuss together. So tonight we are here with the promoters of a European Citizen Initiative, which is a participatory democracy instrument to propose policies to the European Commission. We have Marco Cappato and Monica Frassoni, who are going to talk us about this initiative. We have Violeta Bulc, former EU Commissioner of Transport and now Evangelist of Eco-Civilization, who joined us today, and I thank her for this. Giuseppe Grezzi, Councillor of the Area of Sustainable Mobility, Urban Space at the Valencia City Council. Susanna Karp, EU Engagement Lead at Sandberg, and a lot of other things that she will tell us more. And Ian Valentin, Teaching and Researching Assistant at University of Vienna. And what we're going to do is to explore the needs of our citizen mobilization for fighting climate change, how this one is conceived, but in general, how citizens can make sure that the European Union has the right instruments to face the global challenges and to play a role globally. So I will not take too much space because we have a lot of speakers and I hope to have some space for Q&A at the end. So I give the floor to Marco Cappato, former MEP, civil rights activist, and the co-promoter of StopGlobalWarming.eu. Marco, what is this initiative about and why a citizen mobilization is needed right now? And we can't wait anymore.
Thank you very much, Virginia, and hello to everybody. First of all, before presenting the content of the initiative, I would like to underscore the importance of dealing with climate change right now, or especially during the COVID-19 crisis. Because, well, first of all, I think that the two problems share some point in common. They have some point in common. And the first point is the inadequacy of the nation state. We discussed about it already today. Coronavirus need a global response and needs the capacity of listening to science and to take action beyond national borders. Climate change is exactly the same. Unfortunately, politics is almost prevalently or dominantly a national issue. And this is what is making our politicians so in difficulty in dealing with the COVID-19 crisis and also the climate change crisis. So this is why an appointment as the one of today, and thank you also from me to the organizers, is important because the involvement of citizens beyond the national border is a key element to try to cope with the transnational problems. The proposal, the European Citizen Initiative, as probably all of you know, needs 1 million signatures to be collected in at least 7 countries in order to be taken in consideration by the European Commission. There is somebody who should take off the microphone, I think, because I am hearing someone.
Hello.
Okay. Excuse me, you should turn out the microphone, I think, because okay, thank you very much.
Κοίτα, ούτως ή αλλιώς δεν μπορώ πριν από μισή ώρα γιατί έβγαλα τα ακουστικά τώρα.
Which is making difficult. I hope you can hear me. Anyway, the content of the proposal is...
Microphone.
θέμα είναι το ψυγείο, γι' αυτό εγώ τρέχω μόλις μου πεις.
Is the commissioner.
Έχει
Okay.
πράγματα που θα χαλάσουν, έχει πράγματα που θα υπάρχουν νερά, ας πούμε, από την κατάψυξη. Τι θα γίνει?
Turn out the microphone.
No, this is. Now you can hear me, right?
Okay.
Ναι, αυτό είναι.
We hear a voice.
It was not me. It was not
Anyway,
me.
I try to go on. I hope that everybody can understand. We asked the European Commission to propose a EU legislation to discourage the consumption of fossil fuels, encourage energy saving and the use of renewable sources for fighting global warming and limiting temperature increase to 1.5% Celsius degree. Our proposal introduces a minimum price on CO2 emissions starting from 50 euros per CO2 ton from 2020 up to 100 euros by 2025. At the same time, the proposal should abolish the existing system of free allowances to EU polluters and introduce a border adjustment mechanism.
There is somebody entering the channel all the time. Somebody lady in Italian.
Sunduz, can you? Sunduz.
Yes, sorry, can you check now that all the microphones are turned off apart from Marco's? And sorry about that, Marco, please repeat what
Don't worry.
Yes. Is this okay now? Because I think I muted
Seems okay.
Yeah?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I was saying that the proposal is to introduce a minimum price on CO2 emissions, starting from 50 euros per CO2 ton and going to up to 100 euros by 2025. And at the same time, the proposal should abolish the existing system of free allowances to EU polluters and introduce a border adjustment mechanism on non-EU imports in such a way as to compensate for the lower pricing on CO2 emissions in the exporting country. The higher revenue, and this is very important, the higher revenue deriving from carbon pricing should be allocated to European policies that support energy saving and the use of renewable sources and to the reduction of taxation on lower incomes. So the proposal is in a way to shift taxation from labor to pollution and consumption of non-renewable natural resources. I would stop it here because there are many people much more competent than me on that. I just want to underscore the importance of the practical goal of collecting 1 million signatures by July 20. If we succeed on that goal, it means that the European Commission will be obliged to take a decision on this proposal, and this will be very timely in order to resist to the move from some nation state, from some member state, to use the crisis to cancel some of the advancement or of the engagement that were made before the coronavirus crisis. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marco Cappato. Let's move now to Monica Frassoni, who is the second signatory of the European Citizen Initiative. Monica is a citizen now, a Greens and a federalist. However, she has been the chairwoman of the European Greens for, I guess, 10 years, and she's the co-promoter of this initiative. Monica, can you give us some perspective? Can you put this initiative in the perspective of the environmentalist action and activities of the last years, and why now it's a good moment to collectively work as citizens towards the goal of carbon pricing and, in general, a stronger European policy on protecting the environment and the citizens?
Okay, Virginia, I have to step up not to let you hang there. Monica was part of the attendees, and I think she doesn't have the WebEx app on her phone, so I told her to re-download it. Okay. So I could not yet add her as a panelist. Now I cannot see her. Yeah, so sorry, if you could perhaps leave her point to later until she has figured it out.
No
yeah, okay, cheers. Sorry about that.
Thanks. So whilst we wait for Monica Frassoni, we shift to the next speaker, which is Madame Violeta Bulc, former EU Commissioner, former Deputy Prime Minister, and now she's all her commitment is on the eco-civilization. Welcome, Madame Bulk. I would like to ask you your perspective on the fight to climate change through something like carbon pricing proposed to the EU Commission, and your take on the need of a citizen mobilization on this. Thank you very much for being with us.
Well, thank you very much, first of all, for the invitation. I'm very flattered to be able to speak in circles like this. And I think that this sets also an important message, because citizens and politicians have to speak not only on the election day, but regularly through this kind of open conversations. And I hope this kind of dialogues will continue to exist on an open scene. Just to respond to a couple of your sub-questions. First of all, I bow to you, and I hope we're going to succeed with this 1 million signatures. Now I'm a citizen as well. To show that there is a genuine interest among European population and voters to really use this momentum and get even more serious about mitigation of all the consequences that humans contributed to climate change. And it is really important that the Commission gets this kind of message, because after all, we cannot just act upon a small interest groups, but we have to see the strength of masses, of numbers as well, in order to act upon. The good news is that the Commission has been seriously considering the carbon tax as well. I mean, there's been a lot of analysis done. So in the last 5 years, just for transport, and I hope you've seen the report, there was a 4-year study of all negative externalities of transport on European society. And of course, the figures are quite shocking. We're talking about 1 trillion euros per year, which is 7% of European GDP, being affected only by transport. That is not only pollution, it's also road accidents, congestions, and other elements, but pollution takes a huge part in the overall picture. Commission has been already exercising different thoughts how to address this effectively. During my mandate, we took 5 different paths to broaden the scope of our reactions. First was really focusing on vehicles, on alternative fuels and alternative fuels infrastructure, which we also co-funded. And it's, according to my information, is spreading quite well throughout Europe, meaning that people have access to infrastructure where alternative fuels and energies are provided for the vehicles or mobility as a service altogether. Then the third one was better organization of transport. Transport has been very, very weak in the past in the forum of digitalization tools. And these are necessary in order to do multimodality, to optimize the transport capacities, and to offer the users, being citizens or logistic users, the most efficient, most green, the cheapest, the most timely route from point A to point B. This was not possible. It's still not really completely, but there's a lot of dedication to get this digital layer in place, the seamless digital layer, in order to allow all the consumers to choose the greenest path and to see how we can get there. And then, of course, the fourth one, which is a very important one, is also behavior change. And here I think citizens we can do the most. It is frustrating because as a person, and I'm sharing my own story, I want to behave responsibly, I want to behave green, but on a personal level, I'm challenged pretty much at every step. And I admit I'm not always really taking the most conscious and the most green option. Many times I choose convenient one. So here we have to continue to put pressure on all the surrounding options that we can choose easily the green option. So carbon tax, of course, is a huge change, and we need to know that many of the countries challenging the any kind of tax system is, of course, a very big step, and it requires a lot of dialogue, which, of course, it's starting, and I'm sure that this will continue to take place. The simulations and modelings are extremely important in order to understand better what are the correlations between different elements. And in the video that you posted for the sake of today's discussion, you're showing that quite nicely. You also, Marco, mentioned beginning that in this coronavirus and climate change virus, science is gaining again visibility. So we need to continue to invite institutes and science to help us to have really reliable simulations in place that we will see how can we move as quick as possible to this sort of green economy, but at the same time not to completely lose the foundation, because this could cause huge social unrests and could end up in a completely different end result that we would want to have. So I would continue to invite that we keep pushing for this solution, but we keep pushing for science-based steps, supported steps that through simulations, the outcomes that of our decisions. As I said, that we don't end up too much on one in the side where it was not our initial intention. But at this point, I would also like to bring to your attention one concept. Since 2012, I've been involved through International Systems Science Society in trying to understand how can we monitor civilizational spillover? When do we know that new civilization is emerging? And at that time, in the global conference in Vietnam, 2013, we proposed eco-civilization for a thrivable planet. With many intervention points where we could monitor the change in the society, which could imply that there is a civilizational paradigm happening. And for a long time, after that, we kind of realized we were too early. So we were very, in a shy way, we continued with our work. And while I was posted as a commissioner, I kept this in the back of my mind all the time, our models and elements that could show us that something is happening. And interesting enough, just before the virus crisis, when I was done with my mandate, I went back to this and started seriously looking at it and started to design models through which we could see if the timing is right. And what I could share with you is that it will take more than just greenification of our technologies and our minds. The modeling is showing clearly that not so much the elements of the societies will have to be changed, but we will have to bring forward different priorities. For example, today, if you read the newspapers, mainstream newspapers, you will see that we worry about our financial systems, our economy, our stock markets, the value of money, it strikes me that we're still in the old mindset because the corona and the climate change are challenging us on something else, are challenging us on understanding what is the chance for human beings to survive as a species. It's challenging us to look at the planet as a whole and see, will this still be able to hold space for us, that this could still be our home. So what I'm trying to say is that through the citizens' dialogues, I think we need to go beyond just operational models, but look maybe at a new concept which will give us a shared vision under which we would dare to think about how our societies are structured. And I would dare to propose that I would really believe that in a green agenda story, when states or companies or NGOs will be organized like in a structure will have people, society, land, and similar, and not finances, economy, or HR, or production, or because that implies that this is the focus. Let's take a look at into focus people, planet, society, land, and then ask ourselves, what do we need in order to manage this well? What do we need in order to make sure that these elements can develop in some sort of a cohesive, sustainable way? Maybe I'll stop at this point, but certainly I'm welcoming such dialogues, and I hope that this is just at the beginning when politicians and citizens can meet eye to eye or video to video and discuss these issues openly. Thank you. Did we lose the host?
Thank you, Violeta. Virginia, are you there? Because I'm not seeing Monica Frassoni among the speakers.
Maybe I can ask you meanwhile about your reflection.
Maybe because we have many speakers, so we should maybe give the floor to the next one. I don't know if there was a precise order. Maybe I could give the floor to Giuseppe Grezzi, if you are ready to take the floor and also to introduce yourself to the audience. Giuseppe, you have the floor.
Yes, I think I'm ready. How are you? As my name says, I'm Italian, from the south of Italy, south of Naples, but I live in Valencia since 20 years, and now I'm in charge in the local municipality, in the local council of sustainable mobility since 2015. So to me, it's a great pleasure to be here, and with this great initiative, and to offer our vision from Valencia. In Valencia, we have a strong commitment to reduce carbon dependence, and the vision of the city is to be emission-free, green, inclusive, and supportive, for which we implemented various coordinated strategies, among which we outlined the participatory roadmap for energy transition. In effect, Valencia seeks a 60% reduction in emission compared to 2007, a 40% reduction in final energy demand in the city compared to 2007, and 10% coverage of the final energy demand with 100% renewable for photovoltaic energy, with 20% with respect to the electricity consumption in 2030 generated and cited. To accomplish this goal, we approved the Valencia Action Plan on Climate and Sustainable Energy. And to go forward with all this action plan, since 2015, we created a specific area, an area called Environmental and Climate Change, and within it, the Department of Renewable Energies and Climate Change. We also have a municipal foundation for citizens' energy transition. We call it Valencia Clima and Energía. It's Valencia Climate and Energy, and the Climate Change Observatory, dedicated mainly to thematic environmental education and outreach. I think is the most important part of it, to push forward for education. And also we have a strong commitment and a strong strategy on sustainable mobility, because we want to fight stronger to reduce the impact of motorization. And we are doing it with the Sustainable Urban Mobility Plan, with combined strategy that goes from increasing quality pedestrian area. In the last 4 years, we gained 100,000 square meters of new area and pedestrian path. Also a full integrated bike lane network. In 4 years, we increased bike lanes by 26%, we had 126 kilometers. Now we have 159 kilometers. And with this increasing, right now Valencia is the second city in Spain where bike is most used. It's around 16%, just behind Seville. And as to say, Seville started with this strategy in 2006. And as an example, Valencia wasn't ranked at all 4 years ago. And what is most important is the reducing the use of motorized vehicles. In the last 2 years, we reduced 4% of cars circulating in our street, while we are experimenting large increase of intermodal public transportation travelers. Also, we were entitled to be the food capital, the world food capital in 2017. As you know, all around Valencia, in the urban and metropolitan area, we have large part of agricultural fields. It's very important, the rice production, but also many other vegetables. And right now we have a World Sustainable Urban Food Center. This is an initiative of the city of Valencia with technical support from FAO to strengthen, advise, and coordinate cities around the world in management and exchange of knowledge on sustainable local food system. And also we have a strong policy to reduce energy consumption. We are introducing solar panels and also LED lamps that has permitted us to reduce in almost 4 years 80 million euros in bills for energy to light our street. This is part of all our strategy, of all this action plan that goes to 2013, and we are looking forward to improve it. Right now we are in we have this health crisis, but we think this crisis is an opportunity to change the way we live in our cities and to improve and to go fastly with all this strategy. And we think we can succeed to change the way people move around, the way we consume energy, and to reduce the impact of our activities to fight against the climate change.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and we hope to have also
thank you very much
for the people.
Giuseppe Grezzi. Thank you very much to Giuseppe Grezzi, Councillor of the Area of Sustainable Mobility and Public Space of the Valencia City Council. And this helps us going from the global to the local, maybe hoping also that in Valencia there could be local initiatives to promoting also the StopGlobalWarming.eu European Citizen Initiative, so that we can combine together these two issues. I switch to the next speaker, is Susanna Karp, EU Engagement Lead, Sandbag Board Member, New European and ACIT Foundation. Susanna, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for accepting me as a latecomer to the panel. It's a pleasure to be here and talk about a very important topic. So I should say that I'm a board member of European Alternatives and New Europeans, which are co-organizing with others the event. But for this discussion, I think what could be of interest is that, as you said, I do work for Sandbag, which is an NGO established in 2008, exactly with the view that citizens would be able to buy pollution permits under the EU's emissions trading scheme and cancel them. So that's the name, Sandbag, because each pollution permit, each EUA, was the equivalent of a sandbag against the flooding waters, and that's the name of the organization stands for. Now, with time, we've become quite a think tank. We no longer cancel pollution permits. We produce policy reports, and in fact, over the past 4 years, we were at the forefront of the campaign pushing for a border carbon adjustment in the previous revision of the emissions trading scheme, a carbon floor price like the one that your petition asks for, although I think the level we were looking at was actually less ambitious and therefore inadequate. So it's good that you're bringing forward numbers which could actually make a difference. Nonetheless, the recycling of revenues is an incredibly important aspect of the carbon pricing schemes. And just in February 2020, we tried to look into how exactly do the current revenues from the current existing carbon pricing look like when you approach them from a member state per capita lens. And actually it's an incredibly diverse spectrum and yet another level of inequality in Europe. Well, not that it doesn't mean we should not have it, but just to say that there's member states in which the auction revenues would be at around 100 euros per citizen per year, and member states where it's much less than that. But I think this discussion, I'm bringing this example just to get us thinking a bit outside the box in terms of how could we even talk about the idea of carbon revenues and even citizens' dividends, or just I think there's a whole debate that we could be opening in that direction. So maybe redistributive policies and involving citizens in that way as well, that they can understand exactly, let's say, the carbon budget in a monetary way. But okay, just very quickly on the current crisis, because I think what's crucial to notice, looking at the sort of spread of the cases and where the highest number of deaths occurred, we're looking at the regions within one member state. It's usually the most industrialized regions that have had the highest toll. So you see that in Italy, you see that in Belgium, you see that even in, let's take a smaller a region of a country. So in Northern Ireland, you've had a similar separation as well. So it's quite clear that the air pollution of the industrialized regions has a role to play in weakening the resilience of individuals to such respiratory infections. And I think we need to understand that a lot of the pollution, in fact, travels across the boundaries. So very often in Belgium, you'll be receiving a lot of the pollution coming in from Germany, in fact, from the industrial plants there. And so the conversation we need to have, in my view, in Europe is one about rapidly phasing out the fossil fuels that are still in place, because they produce particles in the air which go beyond CO2, which are directly harmful to the pulmonary capacity of individuals. So I would start from that. We will need a high carbon price for that. So far, we've seen that the current 25 euros per ton is making a difference, but I think indeed a higher carbon price would help to fast forward the process. And yes, obviously the transition has to be just, but we do need a focus on industry having a way to experience, to feel the price as well. And as Marco has said, this hasn't happened in Europe. And I think this is the biggest problem we have in EU climate policy today, that we're not actually supporting EU industry to decarbonize. We're not giving them the right incentives. And we see that the repercussions are environmental as well as health related. So on that note, I strongly encourage and support the petition, and please let me know how I can be of help in the future, and glad to be in this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susanna. Thank you.
Finally.
Okay, Virginia.
I was locked out during the lockdown, and we have Monica Frassoni, so I immediately leave the phone to Monica.
I will just make a very, very short intervention, because I don't know if you can hear me. Okay, so anyway, you all said all the things that were to be said. I just want to underline one point, and that is that now we need to create, and Marco talked about it at the beginning, we need to create a sort of wave that allows this, not only this ECI, but the whole work that we are doing around the reform of Europe to act as a sort of snowball. Because I think that exactly as it happened with the climate movement, but also with some of the democratic movement all over Europe and all over the world, It is a question of creating the possibility of a sort of wave and a sort of dynamic and synergy among the different battles. My main worry now is to be able to convince, for example, those people who were active in France with Affaire du Siècle, or in the Netherlands with the same kind of initiative, or in Hungary and in Poland behind the question of participating or not to the elections, to join in this ECI, but also in our fight for the change of Europe. So the fact of creating synergies between the different fights and helping each other is for me key in this moment. Also because we are still in a confinement that, even if it's going to be undone, will anyway have an impact still. Because otherwise this dynamic will not be created. It will not be created only by the institutions, and it will not only be created by us. So we really have to think, and I think that Marco, with his involvement of bloggers and influencers, etc., has shown a way, at least in Italy, to create this at European level. We are not yet there, but I believe that whatever happens with the ECI, and I hope that we are going to create this wave, this is going to be very useful. I'm sorry, there is some motorbike going around. This is going to be very useful to create also the wave that we need for the reform of the European Union and for the involvement of the European Parliament, because I think that there in the next few months is where we need to get the people going and the people acting. So this is just to say that for me, this ECI is one of the possibilities and is one of the instruments that we have to use to foster this European reform and European citizenship strengthening that we are all asking for. And I'm very glad that so many mayors have been immediately joining this initiative, and I just want to take the opportunity to say hello to my friend Giuseppe and also to Jean Ribaud, the mayor of Valencia. Thank you.
Monica Frassoni, and talking about the wave and how it can propagate. Next person is Ian Valentin. He's a researcher that basically he took the campaign and ran with it. So I would like Valentin to explain us how you are approaching the all carbon pricing instrument toward the fight of climate change, and how you decided to use the European Citizen Initiative as an instrument within your academic and work as a citizen somehow. I can't hear you. Maybe it's me. Most difficult part I've ever met.
Sorry. I'm sorry, the technology is struggling. So thank you very much for having me, and greetings from Vienna. I'm a Czech PhD student now living here in Austria. And what I'm doing is we started a very popular course at the university, which combines education, in my case, it's marketing, with online activism in the form of campaigning for, in this case, the Stop Global Warming initiative. So I think we are really in a very opportune moment where things like this become increasingly attractive, and the feedback that we've been getting from the students is really going in this direction, that they are hungry for this kind of combination of education with some practical things and direct democratic activism as well. So this is something which seems like a relatively new model. I think what the Corona crisis has kind of reminded everyone is about the importance of science. Right now, everybody is waiting for the cure to be discovered somewhere. So I think there's an opportunity to make this connection to all the climate scientists who have been warning us for now 3 decades about what is coming. So I came to this project really through the scientific side. So there is a paper from our university, which is a survey paper, which contains a model that allows you to predict the carbon emissions depending on the carbon price. So the way they achieved this was looking directly at the energy sector, which is the largest component in the overall pollutions. And what our friends from the Vienna University of Economics and Business discovered is that because we have a large capacity, large excess capacity to generate power in Europe, there is the effect of the carbon price. There is a great potential for replacing the most pollutant forms of energy production with the alternative. So the number they calculated is close to 1/4 of all energy emissions could be eradicated immediately, instantly, with the infrastructure that we already have, with no additional investment, simply by us managing the preference in which we are generating power. So this was the argument that has really won me over with regards to the carbon price. And what we're trying to do is to build a network of students and student organizations around Europe that would join us and participate in this petition. So I'm really curious. Maybe some of you have some thoughts about this, but really we are in such a dire situation that maybe we just need to put together all the people that already agree with us and maybe not focus on the deniers or on really winning the argument, but just by making it simple to connect all the people who are already on our side, this is how we could make the necessary changes. So that's it for me for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. So we have other 15 minutes because we need to a bit earlier to leave for the other for the next session. But I invite the people in the audience, if they want to ask questions or make comments, you can write your name in the chat, and we will activate your microphone and welcome so that you can speak. And I take 1 minute for a promotional moment, which is that on the website StopGlobalWarming.eu, it's very easy to sign the European Citizen Initiative, and you can also find ways to propagate the initiatives among your people that you know. In Italy, what we tried to do was to reach out to singers, artists, and so-called influencers to try and convince them to support the campaign. And to be honest, we didn't need to do much to convince them. The logo of the campaign is built in such a way that is really easy to use it in a sort of a Creative Commons way. So coming up with side initiatives and creativity to try and propagate this message. So whilst we wait for anyone in the audience for comments, I don't know if some of the speakers want to comment on what the others said. Maybe we can do a second round, like 2 minutes each, to just maybe highlight something that someone else has said. Let's start from where we started. So Marco, do you want to go back to some points based on what the others have said?
Thank you very much, Virginia. I also think, as Violeta Bulc said, that this crisis is the occasion to rethink overall, globally, our way of considering politics and not just specific issues like the one of climate change. At the same time, we need specific objectives. I think specific goals. I think there is no margin to be neither optimistic, neither pessimistic. The crisis could lead us in a very, very negative way, direction, where nationalism could prevail on international cooperation, or on the opposite, it could lead us to a new consciousness of how important is to connecting different issues and to connect the development model to the ecological environmental policies. So this is really a political fight. It's not something that will go by itself in a direction or in another. The European Union is going to spending thousands of billions of euros of public money, the European Union and national state. So this is exactly the right time to take decision to review the model. This is why I think it would be very important if by the end of July we can put on the table the proposal of shifting the tax burden from labor to CO2 emission. This would change the agenda. This would be able to change the European debate on that. This is why I'm urging everybody, as Virginia was saying, the campaign is open source. Everybody can take the logo and use it and doing his own campaign in Valencia, in every city in Europe. There is no organization owning the campaign. Is a citizen campaign. So everybody is welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we have a question from Andrea Salimbeni. Let's see if he has the ability to speak. Andrea Salimbeni.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, fine. I am a researcher. I am among those living every day and studying the topic. I believe that as this is a citizen campaigns, our commitment should be to engage citizens and to let them be aware about the danger related to the climate change, the global warming. My question is for all speakers, as you are every day involved in explaining the danger, the issue of climate change and global warming. How far is, in your opinion, the perception of citizens concerning the real impact that global warming has on their life? So how can you explain to them that global warming is not only something in the next 100 years, but it has a direct impact on their life in terms of land pollution, air pollution, water pollution? So how do you explain that everything is related? This is an important aspect for me to understand, because it will facilitate the involvement of citizens.
Thank you. Another question that we got from the chat. So for the last round, you can combine things. And also the other question is about coordinating and having a holistic approach. Luca is saying, what about the idea of put together the European Citizen Initiative and the Extinction Rebellion non-violent Gambian fight of people? So in general, how do you see the connection, both in terms of approach, as Andrea was saying, but also in terms of initiative and action from the citizens? So last round for everyone. So after Marco, we got Violeta Bulk, then Giuseppe, and then Susanna, and then Ian. Not sure if.
So
okay.
shall I just go in, or
yes, please.
Okay. Well, first of all, I just like to pick up where also Marco left, and it relates also to the questions that followed, I hope. The way how I was able to observe the citizen initiatives was that they were fragmented and very focused on a very narrow areas, one topic, one particular issue, which in one hand, of course, was completely understandable, because that was the way how you could be very concrete and then activate people. But in order to bring higher level of awareness of broader audience, I would dare to propose to keep at least on the side of those that lead on the level of citizens' initiatives, also a more system view on what are the consequences and where a particular initiative actually fits and what is the horizontal impact of such an initiatives on other areas. I think this kind of system view is missing, and then it's really hard to bring people on board only on one particular issue, because they don't always feel as passionate as those that are trying to organize some sort of citizens' response. The other comment would also be that this system approach would help to have a broader political debate as well. For example, right now, European Union has two clear priorities. First is a Green Deal, and the second one is Digital Europe. Everything, every single other move should be somehow related to these two. Of course, the COVID crisis sort of challenged everything, but I would dare to say that even in all the COVID solutions should be a subject of these two key priorities, because then investments follow in that respect. So all the criteria, and I've had in the last couple of weeks during this crisis, I've had many webinars and discussions also with bankers and investors, and they were explaining how hard for them it is to change the criteria in order to approve the loans, improve the investments, and be part of the green co-investment. So it's a huge sort of old legacy that is pulling everything back. And here citizens can also, during the articulation, all the time point out not only a new tax, but a new set of criteria based on which we decide what kind of investments we will go for. Because of course, behind every change is a huge investment in either new infrastructure, in a new technology, in a new social order. So we do have to keep this bigger perspective in mind. And of course, not only criteria on a investors and banks level, but also in the municipalities and local communities. So everywhere, wherever we decide about something, this green component should come in as one of the criteria based on which we make our decisions. So that would then bring a broader understanding, because when every activity will also have a green component in it, of course, citizens will start paying attention on a broader level. That applies to mayors, not only the cities, because we talked a lot about cities, but I think we need to work with villages as well, and let's say rural areas, because agriculture is a big polluter. And if they're going to be pushed aside only as bad guys, we're going to lose them as a strength, as a powerful force behind the changes. So they need to be brought into the perspective as well. And EU showed a small step in this direction by putting smart villages among the priority investments for the next financial period, which will encourage the cooperation between villages and the city, especially in a sense of logistic networks, green energy, and smart technologies related also to social services. So I love this discussion. I guess that's what I want to say. But please, let's keep broader perspective and then bring very clear initiatives in the bigger picture, and then we will be able to bring more people on board too. Thank you.
Sure. We have a couple of minutes left. So is there any other, can see the chat, the thing is complicated. Any other quick thought from the other speakers whilst we check if we have other questions from? Okay, I read a question from the chat just to add it. Marco Perduca, coordinator of Science for Democracy, is writing, the current very low, almost non-existing price of oil is one of the most potent from adversary of the campaign. We need to articulate an update message to promote ACI for the next couple of months. Comment from the chat. I see Susanna Karp raising her hand. So Susanna, you're next.
Thank Thank you very much. Perhaps, if you don't mind, I will start with the last question because I think it's quite related to the overall discussion. And in fact, what carbon pricing does is it fixes an economic logic that didn't appropriately price pollution. So it's a bit of a plug-in. We're just plugging something into the current economic model because completely changing it would be very difficult otherwise, but this is adjusting it. And so I think in that sense, the oil price crash that you're referring to is exactly the argument we can use to advance this, the reason for a minimum carbon floor price, because basically what happens if you do have a minimum of, let's say, 50 euros per ton or less, but at that point, it's quite clear that there is no future for the fossil economy. It's already quite clear as it is if the oil price is collapsing at such a fast rate when carbon markets around the world have been doing really well during the current crisis. If you look at the South Korean carbon market, it's been actually reaching its highest peak during the corona crisis. So carbon markets are resilient, fossil fuels have not been resilient. And so with a carbon price, we just make sure that investments going forward are not even tempted to consider, let's say, unsafe investments, because this is what we're talking about right now. It would be stranded investments, unsafe investments. I'm terribly concerned about the pension funds that are connected to the fossil economy or to the fossil investments. So I think a carbon price helps exactly to secure the fact that everything going forward will be future-proof. So it's really just a safety policy on our investments, and maybe that's a way to put it in the current context. I think just I wanted to answer to the previous question, which is to say that my impression is that citizens are very aware that climate change is happening. From year to year, month to month, we're hearing, hottest month of ever recorded, hottest year ever recorded. The fish in the German rivers were dying 2 summers ago. And so we're constantly living through environmental emergency. So citizens are aware of it. But yes, carbon pricing, it's a bit technical. And I think one way of going about it is to actually just talk about the broken economic system that's also quite visible to everyone. So in fact, this policy has the potential of fixing both. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Susanna. The last 45 seconds before the closure to the first person that wants to say something. From Valencia.
No, I want to say thanks for permitting us to participate. The vision from the Valencia Council is that cities, and especially in the Mediterranean area, we are very concerned of the difficult situation that we are living, what will happen in the near future, and we seek strongly support from the population. So we salute these initiatives, and we want to give support to it, and we will, because we need a great people movement to give us strong for all the measures and all the transformation that we want to do in our cities, because sometimes we face opposition for political and also economic interests. They want to stop us from the reforms that we are accomplishing and we are pushing forward in our city. So it's very important for us that there is all this movement around Europe and around the world to give us arguments, to give us support to do what we want to do, that we want to reduce the impact.
Thank you very much. So
the
Municipality of Valencia will be the first one to showcase the StopGlobalWarming.eu logo on the website potentially and inform the citizens about their right to sign, I hope. Now, joking apart, I hope that this roundtable that we had today could be the beginning also of a connection and to multiply ideas and initiatives and try to achieve these results that can be important and historical probably. So there is another panel straightforward. So thanks everyone who joined today. Thanks Violetta Bult, Susanna Karp, Marco Cappato, Monica Fassoni, Giuseppe Riezzi, and Valentin. And there is going to be the next session of Citizens Takeover, which doesn't finish here. So stay connected, and thanks a lot.